my name is Daljeet. I'm the CTO and co-founder of cast.app. The cast.app helps businesses scale using automation for their customer success teams. Today, I'm super excited to have a cast.app customer, Dallas Frazer from Goodtime to join us. We just wanted to have a quick conversation about what Dallas has accomplished using cast.app. Before we get started, Dallas, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, thank you, first of all, for inviting me along. Happy to explain what I've done with Cast so far. But to introduce myself, Dallas, I'm a customer success manager over at Goodtime. And Goodtime is a tool that helps customers with their interview scheduling needs. And I've actually been at the company there for about 8 months or so. Before that, I operated within the recruiting field. So it was a natural transition for me to go from the recruiting space across to recruiting logistics, effectively helping people schedule interview events.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, so how did you find out about cast.app?
Yeah, well, originally I was actually, I think I was on a customer success leadership network webinar where there was a mention of cast.app by another one of your customers, which sort of piqued my interest because it seemed like it was a tool that would fit a need that we were sort of trying to build for. So I did some searching from there and stumbled across your website.
Very nice. And then this need that you talk about, what problem were you looking to solve when you started looking at cast.app?
Yeah, it was primarily the fact that as a CSM, we have a fairly large book of business. So we're often meeting with customers, our customers at Goodtime. And one of the things that we really love to do is take the time to share back their own data to them. So invest time to explain to them how many interviews they've been scheduling, how many candidates they've been engaging with. And this is something that takes a lot of time, particularly when you've got a large book of business. And we were trying to find a way where we could summarize all of these data points so that we could get them to the customer in a quicker, more seamless fashion so that we can actually spend more time not searching, but actually talking about the data.
Yeah, no, this is super interesting. It seems like what you built was a daily, like a monthly business review and digital business review using Cast. Which is a great kind of like the workhorse of Cast. A lot of customers do use this as their first use case and then add on additional things. So that's great. I'm really excited to dive into how you built it and all that stuff. Maybe you could share this Cast that you built and just walk us through it in the Cast designer.
Sure, certainly. So let me share my screen. So you mentioned that business review being digital business review being one of the key use cases for Cast. We do plan on using Cast for digital business reviews, but in the short term, what we actually have planned here is for a monthly Cast which shares data back to customers just more consistently. We know our customers are often too busy scheduling to actually look at their own data themselves, and certainly to look holistically at sort of that big picture. So we are planning on a monthly Cast going out to our customers, and then on a quarterly basis, that's when we want to slip into a more traditional business review where we can sort of look quarter over quarter and show their growth from there. So here in the Cast Builder, what I've done, we have a standard welcome scene, and then we go through and talk about interviews conducted, unique candidates engaged, monthly active interviewers. So the quantity of interviewers from the company who are actually involved in the interview process, and then a summary. So as you can see, this is intentionally a very short Cast, just meant to share back the basics of that month-over-month data with our customers as a means of starting a conversation.
Amazing. And so I'll just give a little bit more context for our viewers. So this is the Cast Designer. It's our self-service product. And here Dallas has built a Cast, which is just consists of a series of scenes, which are pertinent to his business. I think before we go into those scenes, which will be super interesting to look at, how did you kind of connect the data and what data sources did you use to personalize this Cast for your users?
Yeah, so there's actually quite a few different data sets that we ultimately would like to bring into our Casts. At the moment, we are using some fairly basic ones, which are all around usage data, effectively, usage data from within the Goodtime scheduling tool. We have a data warehouse where we consolidate all this information, all this data on behalf of our customers. So ultimately, it's their data that we're sharing back to them. To build out our trial casts, we actually just used a CSV where we exported that data and pushed it to cast in order to build the cast itself. But we have already started the process of using a connection directly, like a SQL connection directly to the Goodtime database in order to pull this information more readily.
Very nice. Yeah. Yeah, we connect to over 55 data sources. A lot of them are data warehouses, like what Goodtime is using here, which is Microsoft SQL Server. But there are a lot of other data warehouses we connect to, like Snowflake or Redshift, BigQuery, and then a lot of CSM tools like Gainsight and CRMs like Salesforce. So wonderful. So I guess like now that we kind of got the data into Cast, uh, let's go into those scenes. Maybe you could share with us one of the scenes that you built and walk us through a little bit of the narrations and like how you structured it and how it kind of comes together.
Yeah, certainly. So jumping down here to the monthly active interviewer scene, if I jump in here to edit it.
Awesome.
So what we've done primarily, this is a bar scene, and you can see here in the preview behind, we simply want to show the customer that month over month, how many interviewers from their company are actively involved in the interviewing process. So we can see here, let me play the card.
Finally, there were 60 interviewers engaged in the Mazetta recruiting process last month. This represents a growth of 9.1% from the month prior. Here are some next steps we would like to recommend.
So all of that to say, what we were effectively doing is sharing back that month over month interviewer data, as in how many interviewers were engaged in the process, August, September, October. And then you would have seen we offered an indication in terms of a percentage increase in terms of for the month at hand. So in this case, it was October, it was a 9% increase from September. So shouting out to our customers that that's a great thing. They're increasing the amount of interviewers they have engaged in their interviewing process. That was all built out with our narration process here. So we can reference the quantity and then also talk about the change.
Okay, now I'm gonna pick at this and
Please.
expand it. So let's go back to that design tab. So you mentioned that the visualization type you chose here was bars. It makes sense for month over month data. Would you want to show us that data set, this relation right here and this preview data? Could you explain a little bit about what's going on there and who this view is for? It seems like it's for Theo down below.
Oh, yes. Yep. Sorry. So what we've done here is we are pulling the data and personalizing that data for Theo. So in building the cast, we can link Theo as an individual user at this particular company. Theo, I believe, is sort of one of the recruiting operations team at this company. So we can tailor the cast directly to Theo and share data specifically to him, linking to his company and his data set. So I've used that relation there to say, let's choose for Theo and generate the scene for him. So it will present data relevant to him and his company.
Right. And then I'm going to go a step deeper and ask,
Please.
so how are you able to make sure that this scene is showing data for Theo? It seems like you did something with the relations over there.
Relation, yes. So I used a relation between, so we have unique customer IDs. So the customer ID represents the company that Theo works for. In terms of that relation, we know that Theo is relationally linked to this particular ID, and that ID represents the company that he belongs to. So in doing that, I can pick up any of our individual users, any of our individual team members from our companies that we support, and then Cast always knows in the back end to connect that individual user through that relationship with their company data.
And so what this allows you to do, this relation field, is make sure that Cast is displaying the data for Theo in this view here, which is Theo's monthly data. But if you were to click that preview data set, if you want to just click it on the very left-hand side, it says preview data. A little bit below. Yep. You're seeing here like data for a lot of the customers, and not just Theo, but many customers. We close it. So that's basically how we're able to, with relations, have data for one for just Theo. Great. So now that we have this is how we're able to show those bar charts. Let's go into the narrations to figure out how Dallas was able to create these narrations. So it seems like on the left you said, hey, finally there were some quantity of interviewers engaged in the in the customer names recruiting process last month. So do you want to describe what these these fields are?
Yeah, certainly. So each of these fields, and even hovering over the fields there, you can actually see the data that it's going to be pulling up. Oh, not there. But what I've done is in the background, I've gone here to fields and snippets, and I've pulled up all of these individual fields. And that shows, that allows me to create a relationship between each of those individual pieces of data and what I would like it to represent. So in that case, when I go to monthly active interviewers, let's go to narrations again. When I use that NAI quantity field, it's specifically going to pull the quantity of 53, which is the quantity of active interviewers who are engaged from that company.
That's awesome. And so, and I noticed in the second one, you had a condition actually here. So it seems like you're able to create fields and use those for in conditions to hide and show narrations. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, certainly. So what I've done here in this conditions field is, if I turn this on, I've enabled the narration, as in the narration will only occur when all these conditions are met. And the condition is specifically that the change between the monthly active interview account, you can see here on the side, 55 to 60, only if the change is greater than 0 do I want the narration to occur. So in effect, I want to be able to celebrate with a customer when there has been a positive change within their account, and not necessarily call out if we know it has been a negative change, as in less interviewers in this case have been engaged in the most previous month in comparison to the month prior.
Awesome. Yeah. So in Cast, we call this controlling the narrative. And this is what happens is when we create conditional narrations, we're able to control the narrative and make sure that we suggest either the right actions or the right thing for the user, and not and maybe create a positive story in the case of this cast, for example. So wonderful. I think we got a pretty good idea of like how one scene is built from both the visualization piece and the narration piece. And that bubbles up, I think, to the entire cast. So I think with that, that's great. We could put this away, and I just wanted to chat with you briefly about your other goals around cast. So how do you plan on improving this cast? What's coming next in terms of features that you want to add and other use cases you want to do?
Yeah, certainly. As I'd mentioned earlier, we very intentionally want like a very basic cast to be going out to our customers, just keeping them in tune with their month-over-month scheduling data on that monthly cadence. We have a more standard business review that we're planning on sending out on a quarterly basis. We also are hoping to grow into a year in review kind of cast. So at the end of a contract period, so once a customer has been with us for 12 months, we plan on sharing back like that full year in review, how much growth they have had in terms of interview scheduling, how many candidates engaged, how many interviewers have been engaged in the process, as well as some more specific data like how quick they have been scheduling, whether there's been an increase in their scheduling speed, so have they seen efficiencies, and also some comparator data, so how their scheduling compares to peers effectively, other companies who are operating in the same space as them. So lots of grand plans for our end of year cast.
That's amazing. Yeah, I would just say that like a lot of customers, they start small with as Dallas here is doing, and then grow over time, either into onboarding use cases or what you were saying, end of year use cases, monthly business reviews, a whole bunch of things. So wonderful. That's awesome. I would just wanted to say a huge thank you to you, Dallas, for sharing cast and the Good Time cast and the Good Time story with us. Really appreciate it.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. And special thanks to you, Daljeet, for like helping me build this cast in the first place and helping Goodtime grow and how we're sharing back this data to our customers.
That's awesome. Fabulous.
Thank you.